Raymond should have got us into this podcast with that silky smooth voice.
I could have created like a call sheet or something with some information for you, whatever you want.
I love it. This mic, man. I'm just so smooth.
What are you talking?
Some of us get off on little things, you know.
I know. I get it. I'm like a tech nerdy dude too. I get it. I just like it's something that I've tried not to. Actually, this past year, I've like really toned that down because it's easy for me to go down the rabbit hole and just be like, oh, I want this thing and this thing.
Yeah, you already have
we
one.
like rabbit holes here.
Yeah.
You already have one.
This podcast is a rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly.
Pool does enough to drain the old bank account. You don't need to add another hobby to do that.
Thankfully, this is a hobby that fills the bank account, so it's like a nice, stasis.
Yeah, right. Hi, Demi.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
You're just sitting over there by yourself.
Yeah.
It's still morning for you, though, right?
It's noon somewhere.
Yeah, I'm a night owl, man. That's it. I'm a pool player. I mean, it's still morning.
Yeah.
It's morning until the daily special runs out. That's it.
Well, let's jump into the podcast. We ain't got a ton to talk about this week. A couple smaller regional events before the Puerto Rico Open, which is actually going on right now. But I think the more important things to talk about this week, Fedor Gorst and Köping. Should we start there? So the final score was 60-42. I believe at the end of the day, it was end of day one. It was 30-20. So Fedor, I guess, had his lead. It basically continued the same day. Day two was basically the same as day one as far as that. He beat him by 10 games. About. I guess, Ray, we'll start with you. What do you think? Any surprises there?
No, I mean, it's hard to imagine a scenario where you would say that Köping is not the favorite against somebody. And, I really love like what the Ko brothers bring to the game as far as like they're very solid. They're very professional. They never put up a fuss or act out or anything like that. And, so he's somebody who's easy to root for. And he's just very, very smooth at the table. But, right now there's like a class above. There's like a few guys that are in that realm where they're just favored against the rest of the world. And Fedor's obviously in that group. So, it's not really a surprise for me, especially he's like really in stroke right now with this format, having just trounced Beato and then having played a couple tournaments that, are a similar break format and then getting back in the ring again with Ko. It's just efficiency and consistency is like at the apex for him right now. And he just never seems like he's dipping too far into the well to come with something crazy to overcome a position and keep control. He just keeps control. And, when he makes an error, it's okay. That's my error for the next 100 innings or something. And then I'll go back and just keep running out. And so, yeah, I mean, Fedor, especially in this format, this 9 on the spot, I think he's probably at the top of the world right now. And it's going to take a really special effort to try and beat him a set. And even if you beat him one set, I don't know if you're going to beat him multiple sets. You know what I mean? Yeah. So hats off to him. He's playing probably the best pool in the world.
Yeah, the premier player right now in the world. No question.
Well, what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I'm not surprised if he wins every match he plays for the next year. You see through history, players will rise to the surface, right? And they'll hold that position for a period of time, whether it's a year or 2 or 3. You'll see that they'll produce tournament after tournament after tournament. Like they're riding this wave of accuracy and determination and all the factors that come into playing the best that you can play. There's somebody like that every few years, and Fedor's there now. Shane was there a few years ago, and so these guys are going to take their turns up there on the top, and it's nice to see that it's just not one person for 20 years, killing everybody. 50 years ago, that's kind of what we saw in pool. It was Johnny Archer for 20 years. It was, that kind of player, Mika for 20, and he's still battling away and proving himself.
Yeah, just got a third place finish.
What's that?
Just got a third place finish down at the Muecci Classic.
Mika's been doing that for the last like 4 or 5 months, running real deep in events like
He
third,
has
fifth, almost getting to the finals over and over again. And like another guy, Victor Zielinski, right now has just done 3 big events in the last month, gotten second place. So a lot of guys are like pushing and knocking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Mika is like close, and he's always running really close with those guys. So it's good to see even him kind of have a resurgent push.
Yeah, I'm looking for Sato to come on like that in the next 6 months, to just come and keep raising his game till he's up there with the Fedors,
Jonas
the
Soto?
fillers.
Is that who you said, Rob? Jonas
Soto.
Yeah, he's probably got another 2 years before he's at that level, but he's certainly flying.
I'm thinking
up
sooner than that, from what I saw.
Could be. Demi, what you think?
Yeah, I think that everyone's saying the same thing. I think the difference, somebody was asking, Aaron's asking about Fedor's streak compared to like Mika's 2-year streak in 07 or 08, 09, whatever. I don't think it's the same. I think when Mika had his 2-year streak, he didn't want to gamble with Shane. He didn't want to gamble with Alex. When Darren Appleton had his 2-year streak, he wasn't looking to play long sets with Shane. But Fedor's having a streak where he's not only winning the tournaments that he's allowed to enter, but he's also taking all comers on the gambling matches and the long sets as well. And he's showing, 10. I mean, now Raymond mentioned not on the spot. Fair enough. But I mean, 10 ball.
One pocket,
it's not. Yeah, I mean, he's 10-foot tables, 9-foot tables, whatever, bank pool. The guy is just playing other level. And then the question is going to be, does he ever is it right now? It's just like you can tell that he just looks at it like the game just feels like solved to him. And then the question is, at any point, I guess the questions are, at any point, does he start to look at it and start wondering, okay, now how do I keep making this happen? And does that ever fade? And is there anything that the rest of the world can offer for resistance? Because to me, as long as he can stay in that zone, people are going to take sense off him. They're going to beat him out of tournaments here and there, but it's pretty special what he's doing.
Yeah, it's almost nuts, right? We're gonna have quite a few discussion topics today. We're probably not going to jump into any of them at super depth, but I guess the next thing that we're going to talk about after this is Justin Bergman running a 19-pack. And
yeah.
I mean that's
yeah, and I do want to add. I have a couple comments about the Fedor match. I just wanted to I wanted to give my overview, and then I have a couple add-ons. So before we shift topics, but go ahead and hit us with your lineup. So we got the Bergman.
Well, yeah.
Well, also
I mean,
too, just about Bergman. I mean, about Fedor compared to like the Mika streak. Like Fedor has legitimate people behind him that are willing to push the action button whenever they want against whomever, and that's kind of like a cultural thing too. Maybe that's really present right now because he has really close support from the Sword brothers, and I'm not sure that anybody. It's very rare that a lot of players have that. You know what I mean? Even Mika back then, it didn't feel like he had like a pair of guys that were behind him willing to put him in the box against whomever. And that definitely helps. And they've kind of really pushed his growth in the one pocket side as well, too. So he's just like leveraging his execution and learning at a high clip as well. And, winning big events in other disciplines, too.
That's a chicken and egg situation, though. You could say, well, Mika didn't have the people backing him to give him the same opportunity. Or you could say maybe Fedor's playing better to where people want to back him in those opportunities. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. It's nice to have that support, and those guys are like, they help facilitate for him while he's here in the States. And to Fedor's credit, like he could have been woe was me when all this stuff started happening with the ban and all this other stuff, and he kind of pivoted and said, okay, I'll come here and steer around the US and make more money than anybody else anyways. So I think that's really
hard
strong.
To be woe is me when you're making
he's
$200,000 in a year,
crushing everybody. You know what I mean? So I mean, congrats to him.
Yeah, and ironically, like the tournament that he would be like eating up and destroying, a tournament like the Muecci Classic, it actually had like a real world-class field, and he wasn't the one that was there.
Yeah.
Of course, he was playing Koping-Yi, but
right. Well, I mean that's smart. I mean, you only got to beat one guy to get the dough instead of having to beat 10 or 8 and fade a world-class field. So I mean,
yeah,
makes sense, right?
Yeah. So I guess we're going to talk a little bit as well about the next challenger, potentially Jayson Shaw, because of course, the Sword brothers and Jayson Shaw had that little spat on Facebook that maybe Jason's going to be playing Fedor next in in the matchroom style format. But we'll talk about this first. Yeah, I mean, is it a surprise? I think the surprise that he beat him by was kind of a bit of a surprise. I mean, I expected probably 10 to 13 games going towards Fedor, and maybe 18 games to 60. He's winning, I guess, basically 4 out of every 5 games. It's pretty strong. Or, sorry, 4 to his every 3. I guess I should say it's 4 out of every 6. I guess I should say. I mean, the Köping is a monster player, and he's
look who he's playing against. And just isn't anybody.
Right, world champion.
But I will say, I think this game, I do think this match is completely different if it was 4 years ago too, right? And like Fedor now versus Köping 4 years ago. Even watching the Ko brothers now, you can see that when they came back from COVID and not having that world quality competition for, those 2.5 years, they did not come back looking like the Ko brothers. I mean, they definitely had a little bit of a growing, trying to get that game back. And it looks to me like they're starting to get back to where they were in 2016, 2017 now, where they're at that top of their game. But, the difference between them being 100% back at their game and, pretty close, maybe that was the difference in this match. I would like to see this match maybe in another year from now. Will it happen? Probably not with an 18-game beatdown, but, I think it is worth saying that, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, this match would have been different.
Well, I saw some statistics that I changed how I looked at this, because when I first saw it, 60 to 40 or whatever, 60 to 3 to 2 game count, like I just looked at it, was like, well, Federer's just unstoppable. He's playing better than anybody in the world. What do you expect is going to happen? There he goes again. Nobody can win. But I looked at some stats and I was really surprised by a couple of things. So the break and run percentage, I think this is pretty important, is that, Cole got how many exactly? He got 42. The 42. He got the 42.
Right.
So it turns out that Fedor broke 59 times and he ran out 29 off his break, which is a 49% break and run. So he ran out 29 off his break. Whereas Cole only got the break 43 times. He got the first break and the other 42. So he broke 43 times. And his break and run was 47%, which is 20 out of 43. So 47 and 49% break and run. So they both broke and ran out almost the same percentage, which means because Fedor was winning more games, he got more breaks. He ran out 29 off his break to Ko's 20. So what that tells me is if their break and run out percentage, basically every time they win a game, half the time they run another rack. So, it's 1-to-1. Half their games are coming from the break. So therefore, if the score margin is 18 racks, and if Fedor got 9 more break and runs and they have the same break and run percentage, it's basically it's like whoever's winning the most games where they both shoot is getting it's almost like every win gets you a bonus win. Every win gets you a bonus win. So in terms of how many games they both shot, it was 50 games that they both shot, and Fedor won 30 to 20. So then you come down to it and say, well, in a way, it's almost like Fedor won 30 to 20 of the games they both shot, or of the games that there was 2 players at the table. And then the score margin just gets doubled because of the high break and run percentage on these conditions. So then the margin is only 10 racks. Then you think about 10 racks. Well, you talk about a couple misses and a couple moves, and it's not all of a sudden it's not so one-sided as it may have first appeared. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really like between 50 and 42.
It's a good observation, Demi.
It's like one inning. You know what I mean? It really could be one inning. 6 or 7 pack or something like that. If you get going. So yeah, it's obviously Federer's moving the chess game too, and it's not just he's like outbreaking the guy.
Going into those stats, though, I guess that begs the question: is he winning these games because he has the extra breaks and he's getting that first opportunity at the safety? Like he should be gaining the position off of safety by getting the first one because he had the break first, right? So then I guess it begs the question with the analytics is Fedor winning these games because he's having these extra? So 50% of the breaks he runs out on, that means 50% he doesn't. Theoretically, 50% of the racks he's getting the first swing at the safety.
Right?
Is that
what was their balls on the break, Demi?
So this is actually really. I think some of this stuff was really enlightening to me. because the average balls per break was actually higher for Cole, I believe. But that doesn't mean that was a better break. It was
Right.
1.8 per break for Cole and 1.4
That's
per
high.
break. But the
Okay.
thing about it is that it all comes down to controlling the cue ball to one. Now, the other thing I thought was interesting, because I've had a time to kind of digest this a little bit, is the number of missed shots. Now, they played a race to 60. So let's see if I can find the number
In
of missed.
102 total games. 102
Yeah.
total games.
So Gorst missed in 82 games. No, hang on. Seven misses. Hang on. I'm trying to find the stats for the missed shots. This guy's, oh, here it is. Missed shots. 7 misses in 82 games he was at the table. So he wasn't at the table every game. So you can only count how many misses per times he was at the table. He missed 7 misses in 82 games. Cole was at the table 73 games, and he missed 12 times, which means almost twice as much. So Gorst missing 7 shots in a race to 60.
Once every 10 games.
Boy, is that stellar. So when it
That's
comes
strong.
to, we could talk about how was he able to win 30-20 in the games that they both shot. Now, Nate brings up a good point. Just because he ran, not only does he run more racks off his break, he might get the first move off his break a lot more. So that's for sure. I know he has a jump edge, but I think that the other part is you look at that difference between 7 and 12 misses. Fedor just missed less balls, and that's 5 less misses. You take that, you assume that, that's a 5-game swing, all of a sudden 25-25 goes to 30-20. I'm not saying that's exactly it, but the bottom line is I think Nate's right. I think he just got more opportunity. I think he was breaking more, and that not only did he run 9 more racks off his break because he got more breaks, but he was also the initiator. And he got to control the table more, and then he flat out just missed less balls. So I don't know if he outmoved him and out-defensed him and out-pushed him and out-jumped him. But my guess is it's a little bit of out-moving, a little bit of out-shooting, and a little bit of having the momentum and the lead,
Sure. There's a lot to be said for being the first person at that table with a turn. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's part of keeping control.
It is.
That's really the premium, especially with these guys, since they all shoot
absolutely
more or less at a comparable level. And like Demetrius was saying, they break and run at a comparable level.
Yeah, you're forcing your opponent then to be on the defensive all the time.
And that wears down on somebody, over 60 games, that starts leaning on you. You start thinking about, oh man, I can't believe
there's no question it does.
Yeah, it just starts to really bear down on you, and Fedor's going to smother you kindly.
I'm still digesting the idea that Fedor is missing 1 ball every 12 games almost.
That's pretty strong. Well, at least you have a shot, right? Jeez.
Yeah, just remember, that means that like 1 in every 144 times you play him, he might miss twice.
Yeah, exactly. in a race to 10 or whatever, yeah.
So the question becomes, well, should we transition this into the next one, which is Jayson Shaw versus? So
that's a great one, yeah.
For anybody who didn't see this, the last time we saw this before Kopengyi and Fedor Gorst was Jayson Shaw putting an absolute beat down on Shane in this exact format, and he beat him by 40 games and 120 almost. It was like 120 to 84. Something that jumps to mind, something like that.
Yeah,
something. Yeah. So let's say he won by 40 games. That's essentially almost the same exact winning margin that Fedor just had over Kopengyi, just extended out. What do we think?
And he had over Beato too. I think he beat him by a good 40 games.
Yeah. So what do we think? 120 to 80. So it's basically the exact same margin if Travis is correct there. I
think Fedor can run 765 balls in straight pool.
Not far off. The result is basically 100 Fargo. No, it is not 100. 100 would be exactly double, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I think if you're 100 Fargo points better than somebody else, you're supposed to win twice as many games as them. So 100 to 60 would have been 100-point Fargo rate, I believe, Matt, if I'm understanding Fargo properly. But Demetrius, do you think Jayson Shaw and Fedor Gorst play this exact style? What do we think?
Okay, so this is like one of the toughest matchups I've ever heard because I think I'm going to make a pick, but here's the thing. Shaw has got the better of Fedor before. He beat him in the finals of Turning Stone last January. And so he's beat Fedor in some big spots. He just won the International Open. Right? I'm not mixing things up, right? He just won the International Open.
Yeah.
And so
Victor Zelensky.
I just think that and Jayson has a break where when he gets it's like a positive energy where he gets the balls to open up and cooperate with him in ways. His firepower, if there's one guy that can match, 7 minutes, I mean, obviously Shaw can really control the table. And if you want to talk about a guy with a big gear, I think that's the only way to beat Fedor, right? Is have such a big gear that you can put up 5s and 6s and just keep the guy in his chair and just outrun the guy. You just got to outrace him. And if anybody can do it, honestly, if I had to pick somebody in the world to do it, I mean, Filler maybe, but then Shaw is a good choice. And the other thing about Shaw that I like is he's had a lot of experience in these big sets. He's played a lot of long sets, and he's also and he's earned it. He's learned to move better. He's learned to manage himself so that he can manage that all-out offense with some patience and the right shot selections at times. I think that after that, tragic thing that happened with where he had to kind of like play out that set with Dennis, and we ended up losing that set to Dennis. I feel like Jayson is really hungry to show that he can play and beat anybody. I just think Jayson he's a great pick to put in the box. That all being said, nobody's actually beat Fedor yet. So it's like I'm kind of the ilk where if you see a guy that's undefeated, beating everybody, you keep betting on him until they show you different. So in the end, I kind of still think Fedor's going to find a way. But I think this was a really, really, if you had to pick a challenger, man, I think this is going to be a close one. And I do believe this one could go either way.
Yeah, I think, Ray, what do you think?
Part of me wants to say no comment, but I think
you gotta have a comment. It's a podcast.
Yeah, I think Jayson has he lives and dies on the emotional edge that he can create for himself, and I think that's a good thing for him if he's squared away and right. But I think he's also of the two players the one who's emotionally more likely to dive in case things go wrong. I don't think you'll ever see that really from Fedor. I think Jayson
Fedor's
maybe
literally a robot.
Right, exactly. So, when you're talking about basically a game of numbers, like longer set, you know what I mean? You have to outshoot the robot and keep him in the chair. Jayson obviously has incredible firepower and ability, but if you watch some of especially the beginning part of the Shane match, there was a lot of like mental kind of like discomfort from both players, and they both missed a ton of balls. At the beginning, it did not look good at all. And if Jayson comes out with any kind of that pressure because he's focused on trying to justify himself or prove that he's as good, then Fedor's going to eat his lunch, especially in the early part of the set. And now you're trying to chase down the robot, and if you're trying to chase down the robot's going to miss one ball every 7 racks or 12 racks or whatever, and you got to do better than that. But you're starting by giving him an 8-game advantage. That's death. That's death. You're playing a losing game. So if Jayson doesn't get caught up in because he's very on social media a lot, and you know what I mean, he likes to engage people, and he likes to engage the crowd. I think that's fun and everything, but that also makes him vulnerable. If somebody happens to say something that picks the wrong nerve, and now he just has a shaky start. He has to come out of the gate strong and be locked in from the beginning. Otherwise, I think he's losing. To Demetrius's point, Fedor's the champ right now, and until somebody beats him, nobody can beat him until somebody does. You know what I mean? Jayson's capable of that, but he kind of has to prove that. So how he approaches that mentally, it will be interesting, and how he comes out of the gate will be interesting, because Shane missed a lot of balls against him for whatever reason, whether he was tired or disinterested or whatever, who knows? But Fedor's not going to do that. So how Jayson comes out, how he handles the game from the beginning, I think will be telling, and it's going to set the tone for the way this match shakes out. I kind of like Fedor's end of it because he's very sharp right now, and he's in his rhythm right now, and he's not the one having to prove anything. He could lose the match and everybody's going to say he's still the best player in the world. Jayson, I think that means more to him than it does to Fedor right now. And that is valuable until it's not, So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I was thinking back Demetrius, when you said nobody's ever beat Fedor, I'm like, that's not, wait. What? I don't think he has ever lost a cash game.
I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I mean, it took a Ukraine invasion to stop the guy. It literally took Armageddon. I mean,
it took Putin. It took Putin to bring down.
Yeah, it took an international alliance or lack of. I don't understand that. It's going to take something more than just a good pool player.
Yeah.
They're going to have to send a T1000 or something at him.
That's right. That's right. I think Fedor is the 2000. I think he's chips and circuits.
Is he the T1000 or is he the other one? The liquid kind of surface.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think so.
Who knows?
Magneto.
Yeah, I mean he's playing great, and I think there's two guys like I really like Fedor's game. I like Yap's game a lot. Both of them kind of like make things as easy as possible. Like you don't really see them doing too many things that are just like out of left field or big crazy shots to come with and recover from stuff. Every so often you'll see them come with a nice shot, but the majority of the stuff is very clean, very polished, very simple. And it's tough to fade, man, when somebody's never out of line and they just pocket the ball and everything looks really easy and simple. It's like Buddy Hall.
The JL Chang is that way too, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like slow death, you're just sitting there just being suffocated by this guy who just his cue ball is always perfect and he happens to come with, the tough shot every now and again.
You know what? So Raymond, you're absolutely. When I think about what you're saying about Shaw versus the bot, it's like you're right. The old school mentality was get loose, get aggressive. Go ahead. It's okay to make a few mistakes. Got to stay loose and catch your gear. And then once you catch your gear, doesn't matter if you're down a little bit or how things are going. You'll just catch this big gear and then overpower the other guy later. But it's really, really hard to do that when you're playing against a guy that's always in gear. The only thing is that I've seen it where, like when you talk about Yap, I think about Yap versus Beato at last year's U.S. Open, where it looked like Yap was just a machine, and Beato was the one trying to catch a gear and trying to kind of get some energy and get some rhythm and get some thing going, because it looked like Yap was the one that had the game solved, and Beato was the one trying to catch his rhythm. And so it looks like, well, how is that ever going to win? But then you see a couple big moments where Beato did catch his rhythm, and then that machine sputters once in a while, and it looks like, oh, why did it sputter there? But everybody feels the mental pressure, and Fedor does have at the time Yap had a lesser experience, and Beato was able to catch a gear and catch him. Fedor, despite his undisputable resume and talent, it's possible that if he gets a little lead, if Shaw does catch a gear and start putting big packages and hits him with a 4 and then a 6 and then a 4 and Fedor could sputter and let him back in. And even if he doesn't, Shaw could catch such a big gear, he just comes back just through denying him opportunity. So I do think I tend to like JL Chang and Yap and Fedor type players myself, because that's more of my ilk. However, so I tend to have a little bias towards preferring those guys, but it's undeniable that he's live, man. He's definitely live.
No, for sure. And I think like experience plays a big part of that. So I think Yap was probably like a little young, you know what I mean? As far as like, oh, this is a big moment. This might be one of my first there's a difference between Yap and Fedor. Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least Yap at that point, because Yap now has gotten more comfortable playing in those events, and he's I think there was like a month where he didn't lose a match. Didn't you say like there was like a month where he didn't lose a match in a tournament? And so
he won the Michigan Open, so he won like some little regional event, and then he won the Michigan Open, and then he won the Sandcastle Open, and he never lost a match in any of those. So we went like a full calendar month without losing a match.
Wow, so gross. So he's he's coming up, but Federer's like in the grease right now. He's in that box. He's in that. So I mean, Jayson has an incredible amount of experience, and he'll be coming off of the Mosconi Cup, likely whatever happens there. You know what I mean? So I mean, he's a juggernaut. He's a champ. So it'll be a fun one to watch for sure.
Yeah. I think as far as the Jayson and Fedor match, I believe it looked like, according to Facebook, that they're going to be playing at Jayson's room first, and then maybe a second round somewhere else.
Correct.
That I would guess that's only the case if Jayson wins at his home place. I can't imagine. I mean,
I think they said that they're posting 2 sets, 50K a set.
Both?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So 2 sets, 50K.
Sure, maybe that's true.
What if Fedor showed up at the Mosconi Cup and rooted for USA, wore a big USA jersey?
he could just show up. He didn't have. He could just be like, there's ambiguous. Just sits there, like sips his tea.
Cool. Yeah, it doesn't flinch. Just sits there like this the whole time.
Just sits there observing.
At him.
Yeah.
in an American Eagle costume.
With a stars and stripes shirt
those-
on. Yeah.
No, the
Cue
big
it up,
old
sure.
American Eagle. American
Europe-
Eagle costume.
Europe's gonna hear it. I promise you. I'm on the I'm on the executive committee of American Chanting, and we have something for him.
David Al-Qaeda makes the first mistake.
No,
and
don't
Fedor-
you worry. Don't you? I
Fedor
don't want to give
screams
away
out,
anything.
I
No,
wouldn't have
no,
done that.
no.
I don't want to give away anything.
No,
Let
no.
them let them feel the full suffer when they bobble that first ball.
Fedor
Very
just
good.
looked-
Great.
the camera
Okay,
just
so
looked
should we
straight-
talk about
Fedor and
should we
Fedor's
talk
like,
about Bergman?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, let's switch over. All right, so Bergman runs a 19 pack on a bar table with a template. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, are we surprised? I guess. Like,
No.
Well,
you know,
I know that. I mean,
the number is exciting. It's like, wow, he ran
Yeah, yeah.
19, but like,
I can take this on first, I guess, because I'll shoot
Well, I
myself
think-
right in the face, and then you guys can all like just,
Any one of
just
you
talk
guys
about
can
how-
run 19 on a bar table.
well, I mean,
No.
it's just after the. So everybody has
Yeah.
always said that Bergman is probably like the second best American or the best American after the break, right? So
probably. Maybe.
his cue ball is just tremendous, and okay. So you put him on a bar table with the wing ball is going to go every single time, and he's breaking
Probably
his
the one
playing
ball,
cue. Yeah, he's just going to get shape every time, and now he can just flex his cue ball. So
Well, I
he's
would
great-
say I would say
great
this.
player.
Do I think it's impressive? I mean, it's impressive that you could do it 19 times. Just like 714. I mean, 714. Well, this is not the same as that, but like that's incredible. It's almost impressive to see that many shots in a row where something that can go wrong, a skid, a kick, something like that could go wrong, a scratch, something like that, and it just doesn't for 714 shots in a row. It's impressive to see that 19 times in a row. Something could go wrong and just never did. As far as I don't think it's like out of the ordinary. I mean, I would have to see the table that they're playing on, but do you know anything about it? Is it 4.25 inch pockets?
So,
no,
I'm not sure. I just know it was a bar
I mean,
table.
unless it's 4-inch pockets, I just don't see how it's all that impressive for a player of his caliber. The template, you're guaranteed probably 2 balls down on the break, and as long as you're controlling that one ball, which you don't have to hit it hard if you're guaranteed a ball or two. Justin Bergman's cue ball's so good, like I've ran 9 with the template before on a bar table.
Justin Bergman's a
he's-
gangster. I mean, he's a gangster.
Oh no, I'm not
There you
saying.
go.
I'm saying I think he can
There
do
you
more.
go.
Like the kid is nice, and he's playing for dough. I mean, I think the overall score line was ridiculous. What was he? He had to
He'd be
give
a
the kid
gambler.
He's like 50-3.
50
He
to
spotted
3,
25
okay.
games, and the guy didn't get to 30.
have a nice day.
Yeah,
Come back again.
What
Go
I'm
practice.
saying is like he played a race to 50 only, and he ran 19. Like
Yeah, it's
I bet if he just sat down for 3 days and just did this over and over and over again, like he was trying to run 714, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if he ran 35.
Right.
All right, so I've got to jump in here. So that there's let's just break this down into this feat down into 2 parts. Coming up with shots on the one with an open rack that's reasonably runnable, and then converting and running out the open balls. Okay, what makes 9-ball runs difficult? Like when I think about like the old days, like Earl's 11 racks, which even that involved like a handful of 9-ball breaks and early combos. But like when you think about these big packages that are being run in the 80s and 90s, when I was growing up, people used a hard break. Sometimes they'd lose their cue ball. Sometimes there'd be clusters. A lot of time they'd be hooked and their run would just end. And then sometimes they'd have to come with shots on the one, the combos and banks and long hard shots and dealing with problems. There was the difficulty of getting a shot, making it, and getting control of the table and earning a runnable opportunity. It was very, very difficult. Now that we've gone to newer cloth and template racks and everything floats apart and you're guaranteed a ball to break and you can soft break. I mean, I think it's no longer there's just, you talk about, the odds of something bad not happening at some point, like getting kissed in or scratching with the template rack with the one on the spot and no minimum break speed rules. You can shoot a stop shot on the one, make the wing ball, play shape for the one in the corner on the top corner, and you can play it at such a soft speed, you can't even get hooked because nothing's moving fast enough to hook you. So like if anybody hasn't seen this break, look up the U.S. Bar Table Championships, look up 9-ball. I remember I was there in 2017. I was breaking soft. Jesse, my buddy, was breaking soft. Everybody's breaking soft. And we all had that break figured out. And it's like you can get control of the table, not every time, but if you strike the balls reasonably, you can basically make a ball on the break, float everything open, and get a shot on the one almost every time. And then you factor in then you're on a bar table and you've got 8 open balls and everything spread out evenly without clusters because it's a template. It's like, so it's like, what are you, if you're betting that Justin, if you're betting on somebody not running 20 racks, it's like, are you betting, which of these things are you betting on? Are you thinking that when they crack this thing open like an eggshell and the one's floating there, the cue ball stops? Are you thinking he's not going to get a shot on that ball when there's nothing else moving around? Or are you betting that he's going to miss a ball with 7 open balls on a bar table? Like, which one are you betting on happening? Because I just think that I'm not minimizing his accomplishment. I'm not minimizing his accomplishment. I'm not minimizing Justin Bergman. But I think that bar table 9-ball with the one on the spot with the template rack is such a watered down game that it should be played by amateurs only, because anybody at the higher levels, it's absurd.
They're going to break the game.
Opinion.
Yeah, they're going to break the game. And
What
even
did we
like
see in when Sky played to 150 on that bar table in that match? That was last year, I think, right? I mean, how many racks was the most that was run in that match? I think it was 7, right?
Yeah, I think so. But
Yeah.
10 ball,
like that.
10 ball and 9 ball are 2
player?
completely different games. 10 ball on a bar table, you're not guaranteed a ball.
Yeah. No.
I mean, the highest players are probably going to be making on average
agree with
probably
that.
1.5 to 2, 2.25, something like that. But you're not guaranteed a ball with the 9-ball template. You are guaranteed that wing ball. I mean, unless there's something weird going
Unless
on.
you miss-hit it,
yeah,
they're never going to do that.
How bad do you have to miss hit to rack to
you
not
gotta,
make the wing ball?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to hit it bad.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I mean they're going to crack the game. That's how it's very subject to that. I mean, I've played on Valley bar tables with a triangle, out in Vegas, and run 6 and 7 on people, and they, and I know how to rack the balls well, and I can play like a little bit firmer break, but I'm playing the one to come 2 cushions over the corner, and I have to hit them that speed because the balls aren't all the same size, so it's not even like as nice of conditions as like what Bergman's doing. You know what I mean? So I'm like, maybe I get a little bit of a weird gap, but I'm probably going to make another ball, slop one in, and then I can get the one where I want it, and then I can run out. You know what I mean? So it's like, in the grand scheme of things, somebody his skill level, like a 19 is probably something he can do pretty regularly, to be honest. You know what I mean? If he were to do that every day for a month, he could probably break 30. You know what I mean?
That's kind of where I'm at on it.
Yeah, and it's it's like with the template and the clean balls and everything, like it becomes so predictable, so
and it's not
repeatable.
To denigrate what he did, it's to show that we actually have so much more respect for his game.
Oh
and what
man,
he can do
no,
on a bar
for
table.
sure. I think it's impressive too, like the
50.
amount of pressure you put somebody in those conditions. You would think, well, I mean, a 670 or 7, whatever the guy's Fargo was, you'd think he could run a 4 or 5. You know what I mean? But the fact that he kept him to only 3 games, I think that's more impressive, really, than just the 19. The 19 is strong, but I mean, to keep the guy to 3 games, that's gross. And
what would be funny is after the set of Justin Bergman. What if you after the set Justin Bergman set up the 6 ball he missed to let the guy to 3 and started practicing that shot? That'd be pretty cool.
Right. Yeah.
Like, man, I can't believe I got him. Yeah, that was terrible.
Well, let me go practice his ball for about an hour.
Yeah.
I think that'd still be less disrespectful than him walking up with a quarter ready to flip it.
Yeah.
You want 40 this time?
No, rough. Yeah. What's the adjusted Fargo rate? Match handicap now that I beat you by however many racks. But it's good to see him playing. I think a lot of people have been looking for and asking about where's Bergman, and to see him kind of come up and just play really high level is encouraging for a lot of fans. I think it'll be nice to see him next year kind of come out and be hopefully active on the tournament scene or
that'd be nice.
I think he posted something too, like he just posted too that he wants to play Copigny if Copigny wants to swing by St. Louis and play him a set at the Players Room. So he posted something about that as well. So I think he's ready to get back in there and get in the mix. So I guess we'll in short order get to see him competing against the top guys, which is really what we all want to see because he's such a talent, especially for the American guys, since we have a lot of guys coming up.
There's like nobody in the world that would want to go play him there though. Why would you want to go to someone's home pool room to play on their home pool table to play by those rules to get action?
Money.
Yeah, pride.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got to be worth it for you, right? To get up there and go play. If he doesn't want to travel for whatever reason,
people just do it because they just want to beat him.
Yeah. As long as
he's off the scene. I mean,
the pool room's
does
not
the scalp of Justin Bergman right now look nice?
Huh?
He's been off the scene for over a full calendar year. I mean, is beating Justin Bergman worth it to have that pride?
Well, now you would think because he's been off that calendar year, and those guys have been in the grease. Now is the time to try and play him. If he's asking for action, like now is when you want to play him. You don't want to wait 6 months and let him get hard. You know what I mean? Get really seasoned, super tight. Like if they're offering to play for $50K and you want to make some money, like now is the time to play him. If you wait 6 months and then because now he's back playing, like it might be too late for you. You know what I mean? He might beat you then. So
I just think when Justin Bergman, and I love Justin, but there's some things that are kind of strange. Like when I saw on AZ Billiards, they're like, oh, he ran this 9 deep back, he should play Fedor, and I'm like, man, it's just some really disconnected state. But I think about the match where Donnie Mills played Shane. Right. Like what, 14, 15 years ago. I got a ride. I shared Donnie had a rental car, so I rode with him to the U.S. Open venue from the airport, and we were talking about that. And Donnie was kind of like, he felt that he should never have played that match against Shane because he felt like he made some breaking secrets and racking secrets, like not just public
he shouldn't have played him. He should not have played him on tar.
He said that he made it too visible and it changed the way that people were racking and breaking after that. It's kind of made an impact in the anyway, I don't disagree with him. But anyway, the point is this. I think about that match. Like, does anybody think when Donnie was betting, was anybody thinking that Donnie was going to like outplay Shane? The only question was this advantage of rack your own on his home table in his home spot with the things tapped, and was that enough of a gaffe to overcome the skill difference? And I feel like with Justin Bergman, I love Justin and I love his game and I'm a big fan. I'm not taking away. But when we're talking about Ko Ping-yi and we're talking about Fedor, we're talking about these giants, you just got to ask, like, you can't, there's a reason, like, I don't see, Justin playing these guys, on neutral territory. So when he's saying you can come to my home pool room, like home room advantage, there's obviously has to be enough value there to where he feels that that's going to make him the favorite. And so to me, I don't really love matchups like this because I'd like to see neutral territory, in neutral territory with reasonable rules where one guy's not going to have a gaff and just get to control the break and have the same layout 20 times in a row. I'd like to see who could play better. And when it's a matter of come on this table and play with these rules and then we'll play, then to me, it's not about who can play better. It's about how much don't you know about the trap that I'm setting for you. And I just feel like that's a different game.
Yeah. And I guess to address to address Sean's comment there, like, no one's questioning whether or not Justin can play on anything, whether it's big table, bar table, 10-foot table, anything. And nobody's questioning that. But to say that like he has unlimited amounts of money that he can just like cash in on in St. Louis, and that's why he doesn't travel. I mean, spare me with that. I mean, that's not a reason. Like if your entire career, your entire way of life, you've spent your entire career becoming one of the greatest players in the entire world, and now you're going to cash in on becoming one of the best players in the world by never leaving your hometown. That's not why he's in. That's not why he's there. There's no way. Why would you dedicate your entire life to becoming one of the best players in the world to be the best player in your town? Like nobody thinks that way. You're about like becoming the best player in the world, right? Well, the only way you can be the best player in the world is by getting out there and testing those skills against other players. There's just no way. I guess let's put it this way, Demetrius. If you're going to say who is the player that goes in there and race to 100, the U.S. Open rules against Justin Bergman, who's the player that you look at that going into there and it's hill by the end of it and they're playing one game? Who's basically dead even, do you think, to play Justin Bergman right now? Basically, the question is how do you gauge his game on a neutral site?
Boy, I mean, I would assume
it's not Fedor Gorst, and I don't think it's Ko Ping-yi.
No, I mean, like at this point, it's hard because like Raymond said, he hasn't really been in a ton of action. At his best, when it comes to gambling matches, maybe you'd say Kalenti Kachi or something. But at right now in the moment, a guy like like Alex Kazakis or David Alcady. Yeah.
Raymond, what do you think?
Who do I like Bergman against right now in the current tier?
Who do you think if they played a race to 100, who's going to get to 99 playing one game for the, like, basically who's equal?
Who's his
Yeah, I think those second tier guys like the Kazakises or the Mario Hees or like those. Yeah, those are all fair matches. That if Bergman's playing well, I think the biggest concern for him really is his break. But after the break, he just plays, tremendous, and he moves great. He plays one pocket like he knows the game well. Like he's not kind of like a monotone, uniform guy. You know what I mean? So he can dance and move with these guys and really play well. Dennis Grabe, those kind of guys. He's gonna give him hell. Playing a longer set. Even honestly, a bunch of the Filipinos. It used to be. It used to be that the Filipinos were the outright standout top tier A1 guys, but now I think that's not the case. There's a couple of them that play really, really great, but there's Raga, Raga, who's like, that's the dude right now, probably, and then there's a bunch of guys like Chua and Aranas and all these guys that are coming up that are younger, but they're not like the dominant status that like Efren and Bustamante had, right? Like Efren and Bustamante were the top of the pecking order for a long, long time. Now I think the Taiwanese guys are probably there, and then you have obviously Fedor and Filler and a couple other guys that you would say are in that class. But
seemingly every European country has two players.
I think Bergman and Aranas would be a good match. Now, by the way, someone asked what about FSR. Okay, this is just what I'm talking about. Now, Tiny, love you. Thank you for listening to the podcast. But this is what I'm saying. Like when people talk about like Bergman and FSR or FRS, it's like the guy's like just won the U.S. Open. He won Derby. He's like the player of the year, kind of like on a tear. I mean, if there's not the player of the year, but the guy's winning everything. He's making the finals. He's popping off tournaments.
He won 2 Euro Tours too.
Now, if you were gonna bet on Bergman against Francisco, you'd have to have reason to think that Francisco is so green behind the ears when it comes to gambling that he's just not going to handle the pressure. He's going to spew and play 80% of his normal game, because if he does what he's been doing all year.
Yeah, I mean, Francisco is like tuned into the tournament atmosphere, and like he knows how to win in that space. I saw him get beat a set at the International Open after hours playing against a good player. They only played one set. It was late, but he got beat, and that was it. Played a cheap set. Wasn't like a big, huge, $20,000 match or anything, but it was, just cheap practice set, and he got beat, by a good player.
Who was it?
Yap.
Oh. So Yap
is obviously Yap, to his credit, goes around and practices with anybody. He'll play anybody $100 set. He plays Chang, he plays FSR, just constantly I'll play a cheap set if you want to play, and don't let him get control, because
I watched Aloysius Yap at Sandcastle Billiards in New Jersey playing Chang $100 sets. He beat Chang 7-1 on a 3 and 9/16 inch pockets. So, like, pro cut is 4.5 inch pockets, right? The way that most tournaments are played now are 4 1/4 inch pockets. These were 3 and 9/16 inch pockets, and he beat him 7-1, and he ran a 4-pack on a table with pockets this big.
He's. Thank you, Shorty Dancer, for commenting my podcast voice. I'm gonna have to do like an OnlyFans.
There it is again, just like I said.
An OnlyFans, but it's only my voice talking about pool.
That's pretty cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. You got the podcast voice, Raymond.
That's right.
So I guess the Bergman stuff. I think James Aranas would be a great match there.
That'd be a great match, yeah, for sure. Especially because Aranas
we haven't seen either one of them in 2 years.
Right, and Aranas is in the Philippines, so he's sparring and playing against top level competition, even if it's just there. You know what I mean? There's a couple pages that I've seen pop up that have streamed some of his matches, local tournaments, but it's tough, tough action, and great players. So
T-Rex versus Bergman, I like that too.
T-Rex destroys Bergman. But if Bergman plays one pocket, but he doesn't play one pocket as good as he plays rotation.
Right.
T-Rex is obviously, he just beat Alex in the finals of some one pocket. I mean,
4-0 too.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. And I've seen Tony play. He doesn't just have a big offensive gear. He can squeeze, he can manage, he can fight he can move, he can fight for opportunities. The guy is, whenever he plays Alex, I bet Alex, and I think that it's a good bet. But I mean, that doesn't mean that
in the earlier rounds he beat him.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway. So So Bergman is an awesome player, but he's not Fedor. He's not Sanchez. He's not T-Rex at one pocket. He's not and playing on his home court is not the same as going out and beating everybody in the world on their on neutral territory.
Currently, as respectfully as I could possibly say this, and I'll just say it. I mean, he's a nobody at this point. He is the best player in his hometown who doesn't travel out to anything, and he's not going to be influential in any sort of real thing until he decides to travel again, right? I'm not trying to say that as like a rude thing. I'm saying that as like he could be the best player in the world,
score.
but
and the
but
guy,
it's completely wasted.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's fine, but and that's good. I don't blame him. I mean, he's just having fun doing his thing, no problem. But yeah,
if he's happy with it, that's all that matters. But
That's
I'll
right.
tell you what, they're not bringing the U.S. Open to St. Louis. So
St. Louis is a great town, though. By the way, nice town.
I'm not arguing it, but they're not bringing the U.S. Open there. And
The
until they
arch.
do, or until he starts traveling, I mean, to be honest,
I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at Derby. I have a feeling that he's on the come up to get back out and competing. So Derby would be a great kind of venue to kind of pop out, and whether it's actually in a tournament or whatever, there's whatever you want there. So
I think after this year,
Maybe 5
after
hours
watching the low prize money qualifications for the top 3 on the Mosconi Cup team for US, and after seeing the wild cards for pick 4 and 5, I've heard a few different players say that they're planning on making a run for 2023. So people feel like this is ridiculous. I'm going to go
Nate,
for it.
We'll get Bergman on the podcast.
Yeah.
Ask
I'll
him
tell
a
you
few
what.
pertinent questions.
Well, I'll tell you what, like Justin Bergman isn't even a player that has to worry about qualifying. He's, in my mind, if he's playing pool, he is more of a lock for Team USA than Shane Van Boening. And I know what I'm saying there, but Justin Bergman has never had the downside that Shane has had in the last X amount of years. Like, I think Justin Bergman, if he's out there playing, he should be on the team every single year, no matter what. He's had great results.
He plays well in that
guy.
format too.
Yeah,
like
he's not afraid.
him,
I mean, he's
before Skyler made the jump that he made, right? Before Skyler became 2-time MVP, Justin was playing the best for Team USA.
absolutely
And was very reliable and solid and great doubles, like the trio. I think it was Skyler, Justin, and I think maybe Billy, and that one year that Justin Hall made the team. Those 3 guys were very comparable in ability, and they all held up really well, in that short race format. And they play good, you know what I mean? They're strong players. So I think the synergy part of it is great. He fits in with, Skyler and Justin and Bergman had like an open doubles invitation for anybody in the world for a while, and they just never lost,
If only I could find a partner that could, not let me down.
Right, exactly. Right. Well, those 2 have a lot of confidence. And then Skyler jumped up quite a bit and became the guy, you know what I mean? That Team USA could rely to fill in and kind of anchor it down as a solid running mate to Shane. So yeah, I think Bergman, if he's active and playing, it's hard not to pass him up, even if he doesn't qualify. But the threshold for qualification now for Team USA is so low compared to like Team Europe. Team Europe, you might be Fedor and not make the team. It's a joke, So it's like, for Team USA, you just have to win. Really, you just win one event or go deep in like a big event, and you're probably going to make the team. Because what was it, $10,000? Like, you made $10,000 at a ranking event. You make that winning one event. So.
For some reason, it never hit me until just now. I know that Fedor didn't make the team, and they went with Elkady, and I get it. But it just didn't hit me that Fedor, who's maybe playing better pool than has ever been played, and it just based on like the evolution of the game and technology and the conditions, like the guy might be playing, technically speaking, kind of like Vegas Carlson. I'm not saying whatever. It's just maybe the best player that's ever struck the balls doesn't make the top 5 in Europe, and it's like. It's just kind of
that was nonsense. That was political stuff. Alex Lely said he wanted Fedor on the team, and there was basically intervention from the Matchroom side, I'm assuming, to shy away from that, to kind of promote the other guys that were there. But then there's a double standard when you pick, both Jayson and Earl, weren't really doing anything for the Matchroom ranking events. You know what I mean? So if you're going to pick the Matchroom ranking events,
but Jayson was at them, so I don't think that.
Yeah, he was at them, but and granted, he's going to play tremendous at the Moscow.
Earl was not at them, so I just don't think it's the same
yeah.
thing.
So it's a double standard to say that that's the reason why. You know what I mean? He's obviously the best player on the planet. Like, if you're an intelligent person, picking your horses, you're going to pick. If you're the captain, for sure you're going to pick Fedor, 1,000%. And Alex Lely is very high on Fedor. Like, he's very speaks very, very kindly of Fedor's game, so he knows who Fedor is. Like, he knows his game. He values one pocket. He values the kicking and the defensive side of stuff. And, that's probably why he went with Al-Kaidi if Fedor was off the table for them, because Al-Kaidi has a good, solid kicking and defensive side. And he's also the benefit of being, so close with Francisco.
I could be wrong on this, but the only Matchroom ranking event that Earl Strickland went to, he forfeited out of.
Yeah, exactly. He was shadowboxing against a female fan, I think, in the stands or something. Decided to cut.
And
cut
so he
home.
forfeited. That might be the only Matchroom ranking event that he went to. Maybe he was at the first Sandcastle Open. Maybe.
No, he wasn't there.
Yeah, then the only Matchroom event that Earl Strickland went to, he forfeited out of. And that was the video that we all saw that went viral for a half a second. And
right. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but I don't know. Political for sure.
And maybe
that's all I'll say.
Maybe the Super Billiards Expo he was at, maybe.
Did Earl go to Super Billiards Expo? I can't remember. That was such a last minute. I didn't go to that either because that kind of got thrown on the calendar late.
Yeah. So I guess let's move on from that unless there's anything else anybody has. No. Okay, so let's move on.
I have a shout out, and this is a kind of a Midwest USA local type of a shout out, and it isn't pocket pool, so I'm going to change here a little bit. It's Three Cushion Billiards, and the Minneapolis Billiard Club had their annual championship, and it's an invitational. They can only have 10 people at the tournament, so out of the 25 or so that want to come and play in it, they just draw straws to see who comes and plays. And this year, the tournament in Minneapolis was won by Craig Powers. So I want to give a shout out personally to Craig for winning that. He beat players like Freddie Lammers, who is one of the Midwest premier players. Lupe Cruz from Illinois, won a Midwest premier player, Three Cushion player. And Craig came in first. Freddie came in second. And Mike Miller from the Twin Ports, who got me started in Three Cushion about 5 years ago, came in third. And Lupe came in fourth. So that's the order. And the shout out also includes Craig being somewhat handicapped. 2 years ago, he just about cut his arm off with a chainsaw in his backyard trimming some trees. And he cut his arm from his elbow down to his wrist, basically wide open. And they put him back together. And he continued now to play a Three Cushion after about 9 months of rehab and getting back. And he made a little glove that he sticks on his left hand because he has no feeling. His left hand just kind of hangs like this. He has no muscle control. So he lays his hand on the table and he slides this glove over two of his fingers, and it has a little U-shaped cup on it. And that's his bridge for playing Three Cushion.
That's awesome.
And he just won a tournament with some Midwest champions in it. So, Craig, you deserve a great big shout out for that. That's
pretty cool.
That was a pretty big, and it's the second time he's won that tournament over there. The other time, though, was before he had his accident with the chainsaw. So I love stories where people are handicapped in some way or other because of something that's happened to them in their life physically. They've had a disease, or they've lost an eye, or whatever happens, and then they work through that handicap, and they work through that hardship, and they bring a game, the best game they can, and then not only that, they beat players who are ranked and champion players. So that's a great job, Craig.
Yeah.
And Mr. Miller, third place. Good for you.
Yeah. So I guess Sean Santoro's in here, and I think it'd be interesting to talk about. Did you see the doubles that they were talking about?
No.
Sean and Jayson Shaw versus Carl and Fedor, Scotch partners for 100,000. Yeah. That might be interesting.
That would be saucy. Sean's got a lot of heart, so he might have the biggest heart of anybody in that 4 pairing. So,
well, Demetrius, would you watch something like that?
Probably not. It's hard. I'm not a very good audience, though. I'm not at all a good representative of the pool demographic. I'm kind of eccentric, and I'm in a different spot with the pool. So if I'm not watching, that probably means it's good for mainstream. That's my point.
Honestly, I think that would be like such a fascinating thing. I would love to watch something like that. Two amateurs, like decent amateurs, good amateurs.
I'll tell you.
With the best of the best in the world playing a Scotch doubles for the cheese. That'd be kind of funny to watch.
So I'll tell you what I've got. Maybe I've mentioned this on the podcast before. If not, this is like my secret thing. So I've got a list of kind of interesting ideas, like somebody trying to play pool with one of those what do you call those vacuums that drive around by themselves? The Zoom,
The
Zoom
Roombas.
the Roomba. Yeah, they got
the
they got like a Roomba moving around the table. They got to play straight pool with the Roomba moving around. But then here's actually my best one. Check this out. 2 tables side by side. You've got John Schmidt and Jayson Shaw playing speed straight pool on both tables. Okay. But they start off with like 30 balls on the table. And then every time somebody pockets 15 balls, they take 15 balls and dump them on the other guy's table. Like it's like speed Tetris, where what you clear off your table, it's dumped on the other guy's table randomly. Okay. And every time you clear a rack, now, I'm just telling you, I've got this mapped out. It would take 2 people with the ball to be the ball dumpers, and then one guy to kind of ref. And I'm telling you, I think that it would be really fun to see who could get to the point where like the other person's table is just you can't even move around anymore, and eventually just who would that I would watch. Would you guys watch that?
Well, what's that rack they have, Nate, with 60 balls racked in it or whatever it is?
Yeah,
that crazy thing.
I just love to see it, man.
So silly. Was it the what was the guy? The Blair Thien, I think it was his idea was the pool, poker, and pain. You play a set of pool, you play a set of poker, and then if it goes hill, you box it out to see who wins.
There you go. Well, they better hope they could either beat me at the poker or the pool because they're not going to like what happens.
They don't want to swim.
Don't make me.
All right. All right, let's move on to the Muecci Classic. We'll just talk about this very briefly before.
Yes, we should talk about it.
We got Aloysius Yap beating in the 10 ball, I should say. The Aloysius Yap beats Victor Zielinski in the finals. Mika Immonen, Dennis Graba get third, fourth. Senjin Pelovanovic, Yanni Yuski, Pius Labutis, and Max Lechner get 5th through 8th. So talk about a pretty stacked field for a small little town in Florida. Pretty impressive stuff to get
about
that quality.
About 10, 15 minutes from where I live. Yap double dipped the tournament too. He won the 10 ball on the 9-footer, won the bar table event as well, undefeated in both. So yeah, it's kind of gross. I mean, he must have cleared like 20 grand, I think, for this weekend just from that, because there was Calcuttas. There was Calcuttas in both events too, and I think the 10 ball was like 10,000 added. So
it's actually perfect that you're here for this, because I want to talk about the Calcutta really quickly before you move on. Is it a normal thing in Florida for the promoters to take 10% of the Calcutta in Florida?
It depends. The majority of them do. The majority of them will take 10%. I've not gone to certain events I've not gone to certain events when they said that they do that, just to kind of like, whatever. I don't know. It's not my call. I think it's kind of a dumb thing to do that. Personally, like, it's people's money. I think they take the 10% and donate it to charity, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not something that the promoters keep. But it's just silly. But
Demetrius, is that a thing in Minnesota?
I mean, I've seen tournaments. It's not standard. Up here, it's 40, 30, 20, 10 is pretty standard. 100% payouts pretty standard. But, listen, if they did it, as long as they announce it ahead of time, I don't have a problem with it. I think it'll affect my bidding. It might affect participation, whether or not it's, listen, the Calcutta is voluntary. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. Right. So if you don't like it, don't bid on the players. And then if enough players don't bid to where they're like, well, we're not really, this is killing our action, we don't want to do it. I mean, like, okay, I'll look at it this way. You don't get mad if they don't run a Calcutta. So it's like, if they want to run a Calcutta that you don't want to participate in, it's just, look at it like there's no Calcutta then. And then if enough people do that, the tournament director's like, this isn't really working, we'd rather just not have a Calcutta, or we'd add all the money. I mean, you have a choice, they have a choice. There's nothing they're obligated to do. I think that tournament directors in general if there's something that they can do that's transparent, where they can help make a little money to do a hard job, I'm okay with that. So I don't really have a huge, like, I don't have any ethical or moral problems with it. It might affect my bidding a little bit in certain spots, but if they want, it's just like poker rooms do a rake. I don't really care.
Right.
I'm all about the tournament directors getting paid more. I think that there should be a minimum of a $5 administration fee to every tournament that's ran, and that doesn't go back to the tournament. That doesn't go to the bar. That doesn't go to anyone. That goes to the tournament director. I think if you're going and paying $40 for an entry fee, you can pay $5 to make that tournament happen. Now you run into the issues of, should tournament directors be playing in their own events? I will say I have a big problem. There's a couple places in Wisconsin where they charge an administration fee, and then the promoters play in the event, and then you end up actually helping the event because they know that you can do it. And then, so basically you're paying for somebody else to do the event that you're doing. But that's neither here nor there. I think it should be, you should absolutely have to pay the tournament director to run some events. If nothing else, buy him lunch if you're not going to do it. Like, a tournament director should be showing up and being,
don't be a nit,
taken care of. Like, if you don't take care of your tournament director, whether it's fees, administration fees, or buying them lunch every single time, like, especially if you're cashing out of the place regularly, I think that's just torture. Tournament
it's
directors
also
is the
like
worst job in the
tournament
world.
directors will burn out over after like 3 or 4 years and not want to keep running regional
If they make it that long, that's a long time.
It's too much of a hassle, you know what I mean? And you're really, trying to cater to everybody, and everybody has a complaint, and it's kind of a thankless job. But
yeah, when we ran the state BCAPL tournament here in Wisconsin, we always had an administration fee along with the entry fee. And with, the 1,200 players, say, for instance, in the tournament paying that administration fee of $5, that adds up to $5,000, $6,000 every year. And we would give a percentage of that to the tournament director. And it was right around 20%. So for just to pay him, and then we would use some of that money to pay the refs with, and some other expenses, and around 25% of it, about a quarter of it, we put back into the prize fund. Anything that we didn't need for administration of the tournament and running of the tournament.
And if you're Timmy Bly makes a good point. Like, if you're snapping off a tournament, then you probably should, drop off a little jelly to the tournament director as like a courtesy, as a thank you for, running the event, and that kind of stuff.
You do see that with Calcutta money once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever wins that or comes in first, second. I've seen fourth place finishers in the Calcutta give tournament director money.
Yeah.
Hand them cash.
Well, and I agree. I think that, but I just wanted to answer one question too. Somebody was asking about Fedor's dominance and if he's going to be able to maintain it like Shane did for 15 years. I just wanted to interject. My thought on that is that Shane, when Shane was dominant, the second, his opponents were like Neil Spann, Ralph Souquet, Darren Appleton, Mika Eminem, Corey Deuel. Now, Fedor is trying to dominate, and he's got Filler, Albin, Shaw, Lucius Yap, Dennis Urcolo. I mean, Shane, yeah, but I honestly don't. Okay, anyway, so the point is that I think that the talent has gotten so strong and so deep that, like, you've got like 5, 6, 7 guys that could all be, Albin Ocean. Did I say Albin? Anyway, you got 5, 6 guys that are all like, basically they would be the best in the world if it wasn't for Fedor doing what he's doing. So it's like, I just don't think it's going to be possible for anybody to maintain a dominant edge for as long as it happened in the 80s, 90s, or even 10 years ago.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think if anything, we'll just see the standard of play continue to average up, right? Like,
I hope so.
Like the quality of play it takes to win, you might just see more guys average up into that tier of people that are legitimate threats to win a tournament, and the results will take care of themselves. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna be talking about 850 Fargo really soon. Like,
about the last 5 years, you have seen those numbers gradually come up across the board.
A couple years ago, 820 something Fargo was like, wow. Now there's like 6, 7, 8 guys that are there.
There you
now
go.
There's 3 guys in 830.
But there's the question though. Do we think that? And I don't know that we want to get down this too far. But like, I'm not convinced that Fargo rates are static. I think that Fargo rates are about measuring the differences in performance between groups of players, and then an 820 today might not be the same as an 820 when Fargo first came out. Like, I don't know if talent's actually gotten that much stronger, or if it's just we've gotten more data and there's been a more accurate spread established. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely a volume of data is what's going to make it, increasingly more effective market.
I think they talk about like Fargo creep or something. I don't know, but we'll find out. We'll find out over the years. So.
At the end of the day, if you restarted the ELO ranking system, the Fargo rate system, and you did it in 2 neighboring cities, right? And let's say you did it in Minneapolis and you did it in Madison, Wisconsin, right? We're going to have our 850s just like you're going to have your 850s or whatever it's going to end up being. But that doesn't mean that your 850 is the same as our 850, right? I mean, that's like a small like petri dish of like, as you move things around and as things meld together, it changes everything else along the way, right? So they say, there's like 2 million pieces of data into Fargo rate. As far as like data sets goes, that's really, really, really tiny. That's still really small. And if you ask Mike Page how many you'd want to have to make things like close to accurate, we're talking into like the billions. So we're still getting these.
Who do you think that it would be fun to have Mike and Steve, the guys that do Fargo rate, on the podcast? Would anybody like that in the audience? Because
we've had Mike on in the past, way back in the day, though.
Because I think it'd be interesting. I think anyway, I think that the point is that yes, more data is always better, but they're good enough with stats to understand the size of their data set and then to what degree of variance you can use that reliably. I mean, they're not. I've got a chance. I know Mike well, and I know Steve well, and I've gotten to talk to them at depth about this anyway. I don't know, and they really are, when it comes to statistics and numbers, they really understand this stuff, and so they're not going to make any claims that they can't support with the tools and that they have with with all these problems of like isolated pockets or small sample sizes or players that don't travel or people with the same names or people sandbagging. Like, they have so much, they understand all these issues. They live, breathe, and sleep it, and they have solutions and explanations, and they know it's not perfect, but they can tell you to the degree of error that it's not perfect. So, I mean, these guys are pretty good at what they do.
Yeah. It's better than the other systems we have, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say that's the other reason to jelly roll your tournament director is so that your handicap doesn't go up after you heist the thing. I'm just saying, you gotta grease the wheel, man. This ain't the old days where you just show up and win every week.
Grease the wheel.
Grease the wheels,
all right,
baby.
Let's close out this last tournament here. That's the same tournament, the 3rd annual Muecci Classic. Aloysius Yep, like you said, already cleaned them out. Wins the A side and the B, or the 9-ball and the 10-ball, not losing a match on either side. Max Lechner gets 2nd. Pius Labutis and BJ Usheri get 3rd, 4th.
Yeah.
Aleska Pochel, yeah, and Conrad Yushishin. I can do that one better than Alexa.
Right.
That's weird. Alex Kazakis and Yanni Yuski getting 7th, 8th. Kind of a pretty cool tournament for Pius Labutis. Wins his first match and then loses his second match and then wins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 matches in a row to get back to 3rd.
Everybody was gapping the wing ball too in that tournament on the bar table side. Apparently somebody figured out that they don't care what you do with the rack, and the balls aren't brand new, perfect, clean balls. So some racks are difficult to, like, even with the AccuRack, to get them all frozen and touched up and get them opening repeatedly the same way. So to shortcut that process, they would gap the wing ball and break from the middle and slam break it and draw bring the cue ball, the 1 ball up towards the corner, and then whatever happened, they'd probably get a shot. So a lot of them were doing that. So it's kind of gross actually to watch, because if the balls are all touching, you're never supposed to make the wing ball from that spot. But
you know what? When you have, I can't help myself. I was just telling you, I'm just biting my tongue, and I can't help myself. When there's certain people that do certain things that are, okay, like when you're watching a horror movie, and for a while you're like getting nervous because you're like, you're identifying with the character and you don't want anything bad to happen. And when they walk into a dark room, you're tense. But then at some point they do something so stupid that something switches and you start wanting them to get killed. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to go split up and go into the forest. Like, really?
I'm going to go alone over here in the dark.
we can cover more ground if I go by myself into the attic, right? Like, and you know what? Why don't I leave? And it's like at some point you're just like, well, now I hope you die. Well, that's how I feel about watching these tournament directors with these. They're going to invite international level players onto a goddamn 7-foot table, and then you're going to not monitor the break rules, and then it's like, well, now I hope your event. I mean, like, I hope this is terrible, Pool, because I hope that it just comes down to a complete whoever gaffs the rack best, ha ha ha, gets the money.
That's
Because
really what it was.
and it's torturous for anybody to watch because they spend
was.
10 minutes racking and then make a dead ball and run the same pattern again and again and con their way into the finals and ha ha ha. I hope that's what you get because you made it that way.
BJ Usry didn't do that the whole tournament, and really, I mean, had to play jam up through crappy racks and like balls that were sagging, and like had to really fight and outmove his opponents and beat like a bunch of top players on the way there. He won that event last year, kind of doing, that he made both finals, I think, last year. Played stout pool, played really, really good. And, it's just tough to fade, having to outrun a guy who's gapping the wing ball every single time, set over set over set over set. And you're playing guys that are 800 Fargos, over and over and over and over again. So it was kind of rough. It caught me by surprise because I think I played Aloysius the third round or something like that on the winner's side, and he was gapping the wing ball on me, and I'm like, what the other two, the match that I played before that, the table racked great, racked perfect, so I didn't need to do that. I just broke from the rail, and that's how I broke, because I have that break dialed in, and I beat my guy like 9-1 and broke like almost perfect. It was one rack I didn't get shape on the very last break. But then against Aloysius, that wasn't working. The balls wouldn't touch up, and I couldn't get the balls to spread the right way. And then I saw him gapping the one, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So it was kind of annoying. But all that aside, and then I start looking around. I see like Jesus Atencio is doing it, and then all the Europeans are doing it, and then Aloysius is doing it. Like, this becomes like the meta now under this, Wild Wild West format, where the balls aren't all perfect. And then you got to you want to protect yourself by making sure you make the wing ball. Everybody was gapping the wing ball. It's kind of gross.
Well, let me ask this, Raymond.
Except me and except a couple other people, but yeah.
So let me ask you this question, Raymond, because let's be realistic here. You're not like one of these world-class players that we're talking about, right? So if by not doing what they're doing, not only are you giving up a bit of an edge on the table, you're giving up an edge on the racking too. Why wouldn't you start gapping the balls? Is it strictly as a bit of, this is my morality, and I want to play the game
I've just never done it, so I'm not in stroke doing that, and I don't want to learn on the fly. You know what I mean? Like, I know what it looks like when the wing ball's not touching, but then you gotta hit the stroke, and you gotta you know what I mean? So it's like it is what it is. You know what I mean? And it's alternate break, and I don't know. It's just it's like a little bit of a gray area. At that point, it's like, okay, if we're just gonna rack however we want to rack and just exemplify rack break knowledge, that's cool. Whatever, we can do that. It's not a big deal. But ideally, you have balls are all the same size, everything's perfect, and you can, they want to gap the wing ball, sure, I think that's fine. Go ahead. Then I'll break from the corner, and we'll see whose break is better. But yeah, I mean, you give yourself a disadvantage for sure. Which is why I mentioned BJ, because BJ got to the semifinals or whatever, not gapping the wing ball, and just, carried the handicap of doing that and did well. So, but sure. I also will say something, not to be negative or anything, but I traveled to a bunch of tournaments this past month or so, and I've seen a lot of players kind of behave in a way that's like, I would call immature, and I would call childish. And these are players that travel the world and have sponsors and have all this stuff. And they've
kind of players that were coaches pick on the U.S. Moscone Cup. Never mind. Sorry.
I'm talking about European players. The vast majority of them that I would not have expected to have. I think I could have made a compilation video of how many shafts were banged on tables over this weekend, and done like this was brought to you by Quality Control Department, showing the robust build construction quality of our equipment. And it's like, I think it's become almost like a cultural thing that's become accepted amongst them, and nobody amongst their little crew of people that travel around the world, they all kind of do it, and it becomes like a normative behavior. And it's almost like, oh, this is like what good players do. When we get frustrated, We show our frustration by smacking our cue or throwing our cue down against the wall or behaving like a 9-year-old. If I had a 9-year-old son behave that way, I'd smack him upside his head, forfeit his match, take his cues, and take him home. Say you can't play for a month. You know what I mean? When I'll tell you what, I had a great experience growing up when I was a little kid, when I was young, first getting good. I was taking lessons from John DeToro, and John had finished giving me lessons, and then we would play cheap gambling sets, races to 5 for 20. But we had a stipulation when we would play that was, he would call it mum pool, right? Mum pool means you can't make a sound, you can't verbalize a frustration, you can't bang your cue on the table, all these little things that people do to show emotion. Anytime that you audibly make a sound or say something that happened during a set that was displeasing to you, it would cost you $5. Now, I never gave John $1 in that process, right? But he was torturing me. And I had to sit. If you could compare what it looked like inside my spirit, you know what I mean, in my mind versus what was happening on the table, you would never know. But the blessing I got from that learning experience was that John equipped me to compete and to be ready to sit in a chair and take whatever came and never exemplify the negative attributes that I've been seeing from a lot of the top professionals. So now when I view these guys, I don't view them as champions anymore. I view them as good players. The champions are the ones that can sit in a chair, take it, shake your hand, put their cue away, and move on to the next match. Guys like Fedor, guys like Chang Jung Lin, guys that are like the Ko brothers, all three of them are very humble and very stoic, and they never give away emotion, you know. But there's a whole second tier guys that I think are now just a bunch of pretenders. They're skilled ball pocketers, they're great ball runners, they're good competition pool players. But I've seen the extent at which their mental toughness lasts, their emotional wherewithal, where it folds and where it breaks. And I know that they have a breaking point because they're willing to share that breaking point with the world when they behave like kids, when they're getting beat by somebody who they don't know. They somehow feel entitled to the fact that they are exempt from getting beat. There's nobody in the world who's exempt from getting beat. You dishonor yourself and the sport when you behave that way and you act like you are exempt from getting tortured. There are a lot of players around the world that if you give them a set and they play their full game, they're going to torture you. Now, what you have is the confidence and the ability to travel around the world and iterate your game over and over and over again. So you have, you go into a match expecting to win all the time. But now when somebody challenges your expectations, how do you handle that as a competitor, as a pool player? Real champions, the guys that I look at as the apex, like the real A1 gangsters, like you're climbing the little totem pole in Mortal Kombat, you know what I mean? You're working way up to the top and you're getting to Goro and Shang Tsung, and like these are the guys who are the final bosses. Like those guys have transcended all this other crap, but they don't show that emotion. They don't give that to you. They're not going to hand over that ammunition. But some of these guys, 800 Fargos, I mean, I've seen 6, 7, 8 of them smack their cue around, and it's almost like a shark technique too, especially if it's like lower level guys who are really playing at the top of their game to keep up or have a slight advantage. You know what I mean? Those guys, every once in a while, that stuff will unsettle them. You know what I mean? And it gives them just enough of an advantage to get them dissuade from their game so they can get in. So being able to manage yourself when you see that is important. So advice to players that are coming up and going out, you're going to see that. Unfortunately, you're going to see that amongst those guys. But to me, I think it's important if you're a professional who's traveling the world and your name is going on flyers and you're playing in regional tournaments and you're going to be a draw, you have a responsibility to perform and behave like a professional, not a child. Especially if there's going to be young kids or league players who are like, oh man, this top player is going to be at the pool room. I'm going to go watch them. And they happen to come across and see you behave like an amateur, really. Like this is stuff that you would maybe expect at an APA, cities match or something, somebody getting upset and banging their cue or acting like a jerk. Like this is not acceptable. So I almost went up to him I talked to a couple of them like, hey, don't come to my pool room and act like this. You know what I mean? Because maybe this is okay in your culture, you know what I mean, amongst you guys, right? You guys are pros, you guys travel the world and you guys do this. But this is not culturally acceptable. And like I think the standard of how we conduct ourselves as professionals needs to be way higher. And you play great, but behaving this way is not cool. So just something to think about. I don't have to name names. I don't want to name names. I'm not here to do that. But it's just like the things that we do, and we like, you probably wouldn't do that if like the matchroom cameras were on you. You know what I mean? Like you'd probably try and be on your best behavior. So
Well,
you should
Raymond,
just assume.
yeah, I want to jump in. So
That's always the case. Yeah.
I agree. Like, so first of all, my pet peeve is the slow concession. Somebody misses a ball, and they sit there with their cue, like, how did that not go in? And they sit there for like 10 seconds while you're trying to get to the table. I think it's tacky, and I don't like that behavior. Personally, I think that I'm a Nick Varder kind of guy where he looked at any kind of stuff like that as a sign of weakness, and he didn't want to ever give his opponent any fuel. So I agree in terms of your opinion of how you conduct yourself. I agree, and I agree with that standard for my own personal conduct. The two questions we have are, that's at what point is it our opinion, and when do we get to say, we get to determine what set of cultural standards other people have to adhere to? The other part is, we can have our own personal belief that I don't want to show a bunch of weakness and emotion, and I think that's advantageous. But the proof's in the pudding. And when it comes to poker, there's people that are very serious. There's also people that are very emotional. Same with pool. And so I look at JL Chang and Ralph Souque, and I look at guys like this that were at the top of pool and say, that's how I like it. But then we've also got guys like Earl that got to the top of pool my point is, we have our opinion of how we want to conduct ourselves and how we like to approach the game. And I agree with your set of standards for yourself. And I would encourage young players to follow that lead. That's the way I like it. But I don't know that we get to dictate what the universal set of standards should be. And I'm not sure there's a ton of evidence that it's as damaging to their performance as you're making it sound. Because I've seen a lot of styles work. So I'm with you on your preference, but I think at the end of the day, it's a preference.
We have Pat McEnroe and people that, are out and just smashing their rackets, and but like, yeah, it might work for them. You know what I mean? But I've just seen it so frequently amongst a certain group of players that travel together that it's almost like it's becoming like the cultural normative. Like it's like they're reinforcing the behavior because they're the good players, and so they're doing this, so they get to dictate how they behave. And this is just like a call, like, hey, other people, you might think it looks cool for you to like smash your cue every time you miss a ball, but it doesn't look good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it really doesn't look good. Yeah,
basically,
it looks like,
we get our vote. We have a podcast. We have our preference, and we're saying, hey,
right.
You
can play great either way. Like you can play on tilt and still come with it and play great, whatever. But like, do we really want to see you smashing your cue left and right every time you miss a ball? Like, get over yourself. Are you that important?
I'll tell you somebody who does want it. See it. The pool cue.
What was that, Nate?
The pool cue companies want to see it. They sell a new pool cue every time someone does that.
Oh,
it's good.
I'll tell you what, those carbon fiber shafts hold up. I'll tell you, those carbon fiber shafts, they really hold up good. I promise.
Hey, I have a question for the teachers here. Now, Nate, you do some teaching on the side with some entry-level players and things like that. And Demetrius, of course, you do it for a living, teach pool. I got a question for both of you guys. Is there any one particular thing that stands out in your minds that you have personally learned about the game, about pool, by teaching the game to other people? And Demetrius, go ahead. Go first on that.
It's really, really hard to know because I know how I see the game now. And I know that conceptually there's certain things that I've had to break down and articulate. And there's certainly things I understand about how I play cognitively that I could not have, like, I couldn't have told you why I did some of the stuff I did or how I did some of the stuff I did. But then the question is, going back 5 years, is did I still play the way I played, and now I'm just finding words for how I played? Or as I found words for how I play, has that led to incremental fine tunes on my decision making and strategizing and things into execution? And it's really hard to know, because what I can't do is go back and compare and remember how I viewed the game in 5 years ago. I mean, I can watch a little bit that's on YouTube and tape and everything, but it's really hard to know. It's like trying to remember how the game looked to you when you were 15 or something. It's like, so in the end, I can only go off of my gut, and my gut is that I think that I've had some cognitive breakthroughs and understandings about exactly how I play the game that have led me to doing what I think that it's almost like a good pre-shot routine. It's like, it's not that when you were playing in stroke, before you had a real consistent pre-shot routine. It doesn't mean you didn't hit that stroke. It's just that you're doing the things you did when you were playing well more often. So it's like I'm not doing anything I didn't do before when I was playing well, but I'm understanding the things that I do when I'm playing well, and I'm making a point of doing them more often. So I think that I'm probably playing sharp, and there have been some cognitive breakthroughs that have led me to probably play correctly a little bit more often and probably trend the right way. But I'd say it's a pretty small thing. It's not something where I started teaching and all of a sudden, I don't miss anymore. I mean, it's no.
Okay, so it's an overall awareness, more of an awareness of what's going on.
Yeah, so I think it's a nudge, it's a small fine tune, not a big lever.
How about you, Nate? Because you haven't been doing it as long as Demetrius has, or as intense.
I think that there's a lot of different levels to learning, right? Being able to do something does not mean that you fundamentally understand what's happening. And I think if you take a lot of like lower level, let's say 420 to 440 Fargo players, and you set up a shot and you say, hit a stop shot here. For the most part, many of them will know how to do that. Can they do it consistently? Maybe not, but they know fundamentally how to do it. But if you ask them if you ask them how to explain to you what a stop shot is, very, very often you'll end up having them answer like, well, that's when you hit a little bit under the center of the cue ball. And when the object, or when you get to the object ball, the cue ball stops. Because that's kind of like that level of understanding that they understand it as. But if you ask them to explain fundamentally what's actually happening with the cue ball and why it's not continuously rolling through or back from the object ball, that's where the kind of the knowledge, the understanding breaks down to where you can see it happen, what it's doing, but you don't really understand fundamentally how it's happening. Even if you're teaching the game, I think there's a lot of more complex things that happen that you're trying to express them to your students through examples, and this is why this is going on. And every time that you do that, you get a little bit better at understanding kind of what's happening and how to explain it in a more layman kind of way. And I think that's what makes Jeremy Jones like so special at what he does, is like he understands a game so deeply, but he also is able to express it so simply that you can take these complex ideas where you're not talking about a stop shot, you're talking about a drag draw shot that you're trying to come off of two cushions on to change the angle off of the draw stroke so that you can he's able to explain it just so much more differently and so much easily. And I think really what I don't know how much I knew before I started teaching, because it gets into that fuzzy range where, well, did I really know what this was, or did I just kind of know how to do it and I didn't really know fundamentally what was going on? And as you're explaining things and you're learning, as you're going through the journey yourself, you start putting to words all of these fundamental understandings that your body knows how to do, but your mind doesn't know why it works that way.
And the only danger too, that I want to argue the flip side for 1 second, because a lot of people would overlook this. They'd be like, well, my understanding is getting better, therefore I must be improving. The thing is, sometimes it works against you. You start realizing how complex and difficult this game is. And you start looking at all your students who struggle to do all these things, and you start thinking about all these things. And then it's like, so if somebody was like, well, I want to get better, if they had the choice of either try to teach it, explain it to weaker players, watch players struggle, try to find words and understandings to explain all this stuff, or would you be better off surrounding yourself in a room full of people that are just like, I don't know, you just put them in the hole, boom, boom, boom. Like, honestly, that's better. I mean, so I'm not saying my understanding of pool hasn't evolved, but in terms of like bottom line improvement, keep it simple. Just shoot them in the hole, man.
And what you're talking about right there basically is the exact thesis to Inner Game of Tennis. Right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting balance, which is what makes pool such a great game. It's got a lot of analytical strategy to it, from tactics and strategy and mental game and all this, but it's also, you've got to just get up and hit balls in too. And so it's got this, it's not chess. You can't live in your head. You've got to connect the two. And left brain, right brain. Actually, I spent the U.S. Open with Danny Olson, and he was telling me, I don't want to like get too deep into it. It's not my story to tell. But he was talking about syncing the left and right side of the brain and different exercises you can do to try to. It's very strange, but yeah, the point is it's a complicated game, and you can definitely overcomplicate it. So,
well, that's one of the majesties of pool, is it can be exactly as infinitely complex as you want it to be, but it can also be the simplest game you've ever came across in your life. Hit ball and hole, or you can go through the physics of why everything actually breaks down the way that it does, and you can actually describe everything that's going on using your physics and mathematics, or you could just simply go up to the table and me ball put hole go. Right? It could be as infinitely complex or as simple as you want it to be.
Yeah. Well, thanks, you guys. That was enlightening.
And I guess
All
with
right.
that, that's probably a good place to wrap up, huh?
Yeah. Good. All right.
Well,
what do we have
thanks
coming
everybody.
up?
Oh yeah, we got the Puerto Rico. What you've been watching the Puerto Rico Open? Yeah, what's been going on?
Just the early rounds, I guess. I mean, the venue looks beautiful. The venue looks
Yeah.
really, really nice. I'm kind of like bummed that I didn't have enough vacation time to go, but yeah, it looks really great. Looks really, really great.
And there's the Junior International Championships kicking off as well. But guys, I do have to run, so I'm going to bow out. But I will see you again.
See you, Demi.
See you, D.
Yeah, we'll all get
Thanks
to
for the comments, buddy.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in, and until next week.
See you guys.
Raymond, take care.